Hello everyone, welcome to or welcome back to my channel. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Lena and I make college and book videos here on YouTube. If you're into either of those things, I would love it if you would subscribe and like those videos. Today I'll be talking about my November wrap-up. Didn't read as many books as I wanted to. Said that last month, I'm going to say it this month. I do know, however, that I'm going to read a lot of books in December, not only because I have a lot of books / I'm going to be getting a lot of books for Christmas, but I always read a lot of books in December because my favorite thing to do is sit next to the Christmas tree and read books all day, every day. And I won't be in school anymore, so I'll have more time to read. But without further ado, let's get into the video. First book is actually a collection of poetry that I read in the month of November, and it was Don't Call Us Dead by Denez Smith. I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. This is actually the first collection of poetry that I have read in quite some time. I don't know if I'm not quite sure what other collections I've read. I do read poetry, just typically not like full collections. Some of my favorite poems in this book would include Summer Somewhere, which is the first poem and it's quite a long one. And then another one of the earlier poems was Dinosaurs in the Hood, and I really enjoyed that one as well. But all of the poems were incredibly powerful. The emotion and the pain and the beauty and just the human experience was so evident within these poems, and I am not someone who loves when there's graphic language, violence, experiences, things like that in literature or in poetry. It's just difficult for me to read and get beyond the graphicness of it all. But while this collection of poetry is definitely that, it's about what it means to be Black in America, what it means to be HIV positive in America, what it means to be queer, Black, HIV positive, like all of that together, separate together, like goes back and forth. Beautiful. Just the actual poetry itself was so well written, so compelling, so beautiful, so lyrical. I loved it. I loved this book so much and I highly recommend it. I read it like in one sitting. I just could not put it down. The next book I read in the month of November was The Fire Next Time by James Baldwin. This is also another fairly quick read because it's quite small. This is my first Baldwin. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I've been wanting to read James Baldwin for quite some time, and then after I read Reading with Patrick, which is a memoir by Michelle Kuo, I decided I had to read Baldwin sooner than later. So I found this at my library and I picked it up. In the beginning, I really enjoyed the first essay, which was a letter to his nephew. I liked it a lot. But then the second essay, towards the beginning of that essay, I was a little unsure if I was getting everything I was supposed to be getting out of it and if it was really clicking with me. But by the end of this book, I was blown away by it. There were so many things that Baldwin wrote within this book that were so packed with truth and brutal honesty, and just, I found it so incredibly enlightening, but also powerful. The end of this book is what sold me on it. I was definitely going to give it 4 stars because I really liked some of the things Baldwin had to say, but by the end of the essay, the fact that he has a solution that he's proposing, is the solution easy? No. But the solution itself, I was just so blown away by and so excited to read, and I fell in love with Baldwin by the time I finished this book, and I'm really excited to read more books by him. Book that I read is not really a book that I finished, but I finished it for now. It's a collection of essays and it's titled Waveform 21st Century Essays by Women. There's a bunch of essays in here. I'm not quite sure how many. So I think there's 30 essays in here. And I've read 10 of them for my class. This is not the first collection of essays that I've read this semester. I read Book of Delights by Ross Gay. Hated that, like, ugh, never again. But I also read Thick by Tressie McMillan Cotton, and I really enjoyed that collection of essays. So I was kind of on the fence as to whether or not I would enjoy this, and some of the essays didn't really do it for me, but I feel like that's to be expected. They're all by different authors. One of the essays I would like to highlight is Transgender Day of Remembrance by Tori Peters. I found that essay to be incredibly powerful. It is not lyrical at all, and it's merely facts about transgender individuals who have been murdered, And I think that that's what made it so powerful, and I would definitely recommend checking out that essay. The other essay that I really liked was Light from Faraway Places. It just had some really beautiful imagery about it. I've read that essay about 1,000,000 times. I can't stop reading it, really. I enjoyed that. There were other essays that I really enjoyed within this, and I am thinking I'll read some more of the essays because some of the authors or essayists in the list of the anthology, I really want to read some of their work. So I'll probably get around to that, but probably not within the next few months. Definitely going to be taking a break on essays for a while. The last book that I read in the month of November was The Giver of Stars by Jojo Moyes. I'm not really sure how you say her last name. But I gave this book 2.5 out of 5 stars. Yeah, I'm sorry. We'll start off with the positives. First positive is my mother sent this to me, and I am incredibly grateful that she sent me a book. It was really nice to receive a book in the mail. Really great to add books to my collection in this room. It makes me happy. That's all great. I have read Me Before You, also by the same author. I thought that was a fine book. Romance is definitely her strong suit. I really enjoyed different aspects of the romance in this novel, and I also thought there were some really, really endearing and beautiful moments between some of the friends within this book. However, that is a big however, I was reading some of the reviews because it has a pretty high rating on Goodreads, and people are really into this book, and I was trying to figure out why, and it's because about the whole like feminist thing, and people are calling it a feminist manifesto. People are saying like this, like all feminists need to read this, people who aren't feminists need to read this, like it will change your mind, blah 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 blah. So my problem with that is like, yes, I could tell feminism was the thing that was being pushed within this novel, but it was being pushed way too hard. Everything was so heavy-handed in this book, and that made it read like a middle grade historical fiction. I was only reminded about the fact it could be adult when there was like some romance or some deeper themes going on, but it's really a white feminist manifesto, which is the problem with the feminist movement since the beginning of time, is it's really like a white woman's crusade, and all other individuals are kind of locked out of that, and so that was definitely perpetuated within this novel, and I think that's problematic because people are reading this book because of its feminist overtones, not undertones. I just found it troubling that characters of color, especially women of color, were just constantly being pushed to the side. Their narratives were kind of viewed as unimportant in the reader's mind, because characters such as Sophia, who there was so much potential, as well as her brother, to discuss the specific issues that they faced as characters, and Sophia specifically as a woman of color in that area in that time, and it just was not addressed. And I think the problem is that myself, if I were to read this when I read Me Before You, or like 5 years ago or something, I would have walked away with this book and been like, yeah, that was a great book, like woman power, rise up, that whole thing. But like it just doesn't acknowledge this whole other issue that is such a prevalent and pressing issue within our country. That's just what made me so annoyed with this book. So I'm really sorry that I had to give it such a low rating. But I just found it to be way too problematic for me to ignore the issues within this novel and just to focus on the female friendships, because they weren't really enough to sustain the book and make me ignore the other issues. So those are all the books I read in the month of November. Now we're going to get to the books I am currently reading. I started this book at the end of October, like the last day of October, I think, and I'm currently on page 434, so it's a big book. I talked about this a little bit in my last one. This is called The Wise Man's Fear. I don't really have anything new to say about it. I'll have a full review of it by the end of December, but yes, I am really enjoying it so far. Every time I open it up, I'm just so happy. I love Quoth as a main character. He's just so unique to me, and I'm mostly just annoyed that Patrick Rothfuss won't write a third book, but we'll move on from that eventually. And the other book that I'm currently reading, I started this last night. This is a library book, so I need to finish it before I go home. But I am reading The City of Brass. I'm really not that far into it. I'm like 20 or 30 pages into it. My first thing when I opened up this book is I love the way the pages feel and the way the pages move. I have not read a book that feels like this in quite some time, so that is very satisfying. I didn't really know much about this book going into it. I just had heard it had great reviews and I wanted to read a fantasy novel because winter is really the time to read fantasy for me. So far, I'm really enjoying the historical aspect. Enjoying the fantasy part of this world as well. I'm still trying to get my bearings because I'm not very far yet. But the historical part with like the French occupation and the different religions and ethnicities and groups of people I'm finding it very fascinating, and I think it's really adding to the richness of this world. So I'm looking forward to finishing this within the next week or so, and I will definitely update you with my thoughts by the end of December. Those are the books that I'm reading right now. Today was our last day of classes, next week is finals, then I will be able to go home and read to my heart's content. Let me know what you're reading down in the comments below. As always, if you have any questions or video recommendations, you can always let me know in the comments down below as well. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you all next week. So